Hi, I'm CK at CK Education, and today I want to talk about the PSAT, also known as the National Merit Scholarship Qualification Test. It's a long acrostic. But so many people have said to me, so many students have asked me, so many parents have asked me over the last 12 or 13 years, this counts, right, for 11th grade. 11th grade, my kid is in 11th grade, or I'm in 11th grade, and the PSAT is coming up in October, and it counts, right? So it's very important. And I always ask them, what do you mean it counts? And they say, I don't know. I mean, everybody says it counts in 11th grade. In 10th grade and 9th grade, some schools take it in 9th grade. It didn't count, but 11th grade, it counts. So it's very important that I do well. And so they get very worried and stressed out. So let me just calm your fears right now. The PSAT doesn't, quote, count for really anything. So don't worry about it, okay? So I tell my students all the time, just chill. It's not that important. Parents, please, don't stress out your kids like you're in 11th grade, PSAT, you have to do well. It's not that important, okay? So let me just give you provide some clarification. The PSAT is just a practice SAT. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just a practice. Now, some schools offer the lower 8th and 9th grade PSAT for 9th graders. Some schools have that. Not all schools do. When you get into 10th grade, again, some schools offer it. A lot of sophomores can take it. It doesn't, quote, count, but it just a practice. Same thing in 11th grade. Now, the only thing about 11th grade is that the vast majority of juniors in American schools, American public schools, will all take the PSAT. Okay, that's the only thing about it. When you look at 9th grade and 10th grade, you get a sprinkling of some schools do, some schools offer it, some don't, not a big deal. In 11th grade, pretty much everybody takes it, okay? Now, this in the COVID era, this was an exception because some schools just didn't take it, they canceled it. But if it weren't for the pandemic, I mean, pretty much every 11th grader takes the PSAT. So when you take the PSAT in 11th grade, and even earlier if you took it, you fill out all your information, your name, your address, your email address, your phone, your grades, your what you might want to study. I mean, you fill out this whole thing. And those students who have done that, you know what I'm talking about. You're filling out the little, the information sheet. Okay, for the PSAT, you create a College Board account and all this kind of stuff. Now, what happens with that information? Well, it gets sold. Okay, I'm sorry to say, you don't even get a penny of it, but it gets sold. And the College Board who administers the PSAT, they sell the data to colleges. That's why in 11th grade, once you get going with 11th grade, a spring comes around, you start getting all this spam email from all these colleges, and you're wondering, like, how did they get my information? Am I special? Like, how did they find me? When you filled out all of your information, including your email address, when you took the PSAT, that's how they got your information, and College Board sold it. So whether you like it or not, that's what happened. Okay, now look, why is the PSAT not important? Because it's not. It doesn't really count for anything. It's not going to have any bearing on whether you get into college. Colleges will not look at it. But people say, yeah, but what about the National Merit Scholarship Qualification Test? They also called it the NMSQT, right? The National Merit Scholarship Qualification Test. That's what it stands for. Well, what about that? Okay, just a quick word about that. Over the past 12 or 13 years, I've had some incredibly outstanding academic students. I mean, students that just crush it academically. They've never gotten a B in their lives. School is very easy for them. They're taking 10, 12 AP classes, and they're like, it was okay. Just a breeze. I mean, these guys, these girls and guys, they are brilliant. I've had students like that who just killed it on the SAT and the, in school, in their GPA. But let me tell you, I have not had one National Merit Scholar among my students. Now, of course, I teach, I'm in the state of Maryland, and Maryland, every state has a different cutoff score to become a semifinalist or finalist, and certainly Maryland is one of the top 5 or 6 has one of the top highest cutoff scores in the country, okay? Some of the states that have the highest cutoff scores are like Maryland, DC, Virginia, Massachusetts, Washington State, New York. I think New Jersey is one of them. And some of these states have really high cutoff because they have very, very competitive students. So in Maryland, you have so many competitive students that merely just doing well or even doing very well doesn't guarantee anything. So I've had semifinalists, I've had finalists among my students, but never a National Merit Scholar. Now, let me tell you how difficult that is. Less than 1% of 1% of students who take the PSAT become National Merit Scholars. And it's not just doing well. It's not just getting a score. You got to get a score. You have to write an essay. You have to submit your transcripts. You have to submit your extracurricular activities. And it's this whole year-long process to become a National Merit Scholar. And I could tell you that National Merit Scholars are usually, I'm not saying always, but usually given to students whom they think need it. Okay, so I'm talking about underrepresented minorities, and I'm talking about lower income families. And I think that's fair. I do. If your parents are making $500,000, you don't really need the $2,500. And by the way, $2,500, that's all it is. The National Merit Scholarship amount is $2,500. It ain't much. Okay, so money-wise, it's not much. However, if you do that well on the PSAT, then obviously you're probably going to do very well on the SAT. And that will give you scholarships, can give you scholarships, especially if your GPA is also high, okay? But for the rest of the 99.99% of students in America, juniors in America, don't worry about it. It's just a test. You don't need to freak out. You don't need to stress out. Just go in there and just say, hey, this is good practice for the SAT. So just go in there and sit for, 3 hours and just take the test and just take it as practice and you'll be fine. Okay. So that's all it is. So don't stress out about it. You don't have to, freak out about it. Parents, you don't have to try to push your kid to do, it's not a big deal. The PSAT, like I said, 4 or 5 times already, is just a practice SAT score, a SAT practice test. And just let your kid take it. Just take it, and you'll be all right. Whatever you get, just learn from it and say, oh, okay, so I got to study harder or, whatever it is. But, all right. Now, another question I get about PSAT, is it easier than the real SAT? Yes, it is. It's a little bit shorter, and I think it's a little bit easier than the real SAT. So there's that. And so if there are any questions I haven't asked in any of my videos, I try to answer as many questions as I can. That come up in my mind when I'm making these, just put them in the comments and I'll be happy to reply. But I'm CK at CK Education. Thanks so much for watching. And until my next video, I hope you stay well.